It's a pet's life with Gym Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit at petslife.ie.
Indeed it is, and a very good morning to you. Tuesday, the 20th of February. Hashtag National Love Your Pet Days. Des Groom, do you love your pet all the time?
I do indeed. I love my pet and I love my patients. I'm surrounded by dogs and cats all day, so I have to love
patience
them.
Or patience?
Patience, yeah. My four-legged patients.
Your four-legged
surrounded by them all my life, so...
Yeah. How did that all start for you anyway?
I grew up on a farm in Carberry, County Kildare, and was surrounded by dogs and cats and horses and cattle from an early age, and I did grow to love them. I suppose becoming a vet was a natural progression. In a sense, I always wanted to be a vet because I was helping the vet from the time I was a young child. Whenever there was a sick calf or a sick foal, and the fascination of helping my father deliver foals, that from an early age, that struck a chord with me. Then we reared calves. My sister and I, as is the custom nowadays, as well as back in our day, the 12 euros, I think I got about £12 in those days for my first communion. Well, believe it or not, my dad took the £12 off me when I was and he gave it to my uncle Kieran, who went to the Martin Eden Dairy and bought a red whitehead Hereford Cross calf of about 8 weeks old and brought it home for me to rear.
Okay, so that's how you spent your communion money.
So that was the impact of it, you know, okay. And my sister as well, the same thing with hers. So we had that involved with animals from such an early age, and grew to understand them as well, I think, or be able to have an affinity for them. An understanding of their needs, an understanding of nature. So as you were growing up then into secondary school, you were saying you wouldn't mind a career in this, but you wanted to go into maybe treating them rather than actually going down the farming route. Well, you see, I was riding ponies, and then as soon as I wanted to earn a few bob, I got a job riding racehorses during my summer holidays from after the Intercert onwards. I got a job with Jim Bulger down in Carlow, a famous horse trainer who had a major impact on my work ethic and life and attitudes, and I rode out, as they say, racehorses for a couple of summers to earn pocket money. Then I was a bit older, I worked summers with John Ox on the Curragh. Brilliant. Then I was a bit older again and more adventurous. I went to France and I worked for a trainer in France called John Hammond. Again, riding horses all the time. So it never dawned on me that I would be working with anything other than animals. So veterinary was a natural progression. In terms of trying to choose a career, the only thing I could think of was a jockey or a horse trainer, and I wasn't good enough to be a jockey. And I was good at school, so the progression into veterinary was automatic. And were you tempted to stay the equine route because of your background? I did initially. Yes. So equine veterinary came very natural to me. And I did a lot of equine veterinary from a very early age and worked in the UK, worked with racehorses. Then I went to Saudi Arabia and I worked with the royal family with racehorses in Riyadh and in Jeddah on racetracks. And that interest in racehorses lasted until I did about probably a couple of years after I started up the business in Kildare. People with dogs and cats started to come to me, and I realised I enjoyed that too. So I think everyone's interests evolve as they get older. I always had a restless mind and a curiosity for learning. So when I felt I'd nearly learnt everything I could learn about horses, the curiosity and the interest in pets and dogs and cats took over from there. Brilliant. And the way of life just changed slightly as I got older, and of course we weren't living in a country area to be doing nothing but horses anymore. We're living in a town, so that environment became more suburban. So with that came more dogs and cats. So a natural evolution of my career and my interests. Nice segue into that, because that's what we're talking about, cats and dogs, but predominantly cats today. And why we decided we go the cats route? Well, because they are probably 30% of my patients, my caseload as a vet. And every vet in the country would tell you the same. Cats are an increasing growing caseload. And they're not the same as dogs. So we have to be aware of the fact as vets that there's a massive difference between dogs and cats in their physiology and their medical needs, physical needs, and their behaviour and their instincts. Very different from dogs. And we need to impart that to cat owners. how different a cat is from a dog.
Yeah, and that's the beauty about it. I mean, I'm just kind of we're cat owners as a result of just defaulting from the time we moved into our house. We adopted a cat that was stray, and it subsequently grew from there. To be honest with you, and we just never got around to doing the dog thing. I don't know why. It was just the way it was.
Yeah.
You could go off and do your thing. You go off shopping. You don't have to worry about your cat. Your cat's out in the road or dossing around. He'll do his own thing, or she'll do their own thing as well. But then they're something that they're very affectionate in their own way.
Yeah, when you say that about them, they do their own thing, that's an interesting, that understanding is based on the fact that they're very independent. And why are they independent like that? Why are they... humans have always considered cats a little bit mysterious, I think, because they're elusive and it's hard to earn their affection.
Oh, it is, definitely, yeah.
Yes. And that is because they're solitary, they're more cautious. They're not pack animals or herd animals, right? They are more solitary, and their whole evolution has been very different from dogs. And they're not as domesticated as dogs.
Yeah.
And there's a history and a biology behind that. Now, for instance, I've said this before, dogs were domesticated perhaps upwards of about 40,000 years ago by nomadic hunter-gatherers, by the early humans, right? Whereas cats weren't domesticated until society evolved into an agricultural society. So, the area known as Mesopotamia, which is in the modern-day Middle East, there was a territory there 10 to 12,000 years ago known as the Fertile Crescent.
That's right. Remember that in school?
They learnt that in school. And that is where humans settled from being nomadic to being farmers. So agriculture started in the Fertile Crescent. And with the arrival of agriculture as a way of life, towns and settlements grew up, and we began to store our food. We began to harvest our food, such as grains, and store it.
Yeah.
And with grain stores, then you had rodents.
Right.
So humans domesticated cats.
Okay.
And made an ally and made a friend of one particular type of cat called Felis sylvestris, which is the ancestor of the modern domestic cat. And that ancestor of the domestic cat was used by the early farmers 12,000 years ago to keep away rodents from the grain stores.
Very good, yeah.
So that was their purpose, and that purpose hasn't changed much to this present day.
Yeah.
Although the cat himself has evolved, has become smaller and tamer.
Yeah. Most definitely, they still like hunting as well.
Yeah, they do. Now, because of that asset or that benefit to humans, that they kept away rodents, right? The Egyptians created a cat god, and that was the goddess of protection named Bastet. So, people will be familiar with images from ancient Egypt of the god or the goddess with the head of a cat and the body of a person. Well, that comes from the fact that the Egyptians believed that cats had supernatural powers to ward off evil spirits and ward off ill health. So they really prized cats because of their ability to, as they say, ward off ill health. That's what they thought. The other thing about them then is, as I say, they are solitary. 1 or 2 cats is all it takes to mind a barn, to mind a grain store.
Yeah.
So that's how they evolved into the companions they are today.
Do you know the way people say that they feel sometimes cats can be lucky, and the old phrase, a cat has 9 lives? We hear that everywhere.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly? Why do we talk about that?
Well, it's symbolic actually, because in ancient Greece and in ancient China, the number 9 had a divine symbolism.
Yeah.
So 9 was a number for eternity. In some civilizations, 7 was a kind of a magic number. In other civilizations, it was 9. So to say that a cat has 9 lives, it's a symbol for the idea that they believe the cats had supernatural powers.
Okay. And so a cat has 9 lives, but it's divided up into 3 allegedly.
The old English proverb, thanks to Jackie in the office at Jim Dog for finding this out for me. The old English proverb as regards cats, for 3 he plays, and for 3 he strays, and for 3 he stays. Okay. And that was quoted in Romeo and Juliet.
It was, yes. It was indeed quoted in Romeo and Juliet.
So even as I say in the English and Irish cultures, there's the idea of the divine, the mysterious powers of the cat.
Okay. We love them very much, and we love our dogs very much as well, and I think that's the beauty about cats as well, isn't it? They're just, they do their own thing, they mind you, or they own you, but you don't own them.
Yeah, now that means they're relatively low maintenance compared to a dog.
Yeah, right.
Relatively low maintenance. So they suit people with busy lives, and they suit an urban setting because they're smaller and because they don't need to be let out for the walks and so on.
Okay.
Now, people do keep them indoors. And nowadays in the big cities, in the urban civilizations and urban densities and all the rest of it, cats are living indoors in apartments for their entire lives.
Yeah.
That, to me, that comes with a health warning.
I would agree.
It's not a natural existence for a cat. If you do have an indoor cat like that, you're an apartment dweller, you need to make sure that you feed your cat correctly, and you need to think about the holistic aspect of your cat's life. He does need socialisation, he needs exercise, he needs the correct diet, he needs mental stimulation and lots of play. So cats that live indoors like that, they're prone to stress, they're more prone to ill health than an outdoor cat. Now, they might be luckier than an outdoor cat in the sense that they're not going to get killed by a car on the road, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they're not going to come into contact with the awful outdoor diseases like ringworm and feline AIDS and feline leukemia and cat flu and all these horrible things that are rife in the stray cat population. So your indoor cat will be healthier in that regard. But the indoor cat is more prone to kidney disease and heart disease and obesity and other stress-related diseases.
Okay. When it comes to cats themselves and feeding them and I suppose a general education regarding your cat, so if you're in the market or you want to adopt a stray cat or you want to get a kitten, what are we looking at there?
Well, again, you can approach the animal charities. They take in cats as well as dogs, by
They
the
do,
way.
most definitely, yeah.
Yes. So there are often litters of kittens in the local animal shelters. So that would be a good port of call if you wanted to get a kitten. The other thing about it is, to be fair, there isn't the commercial element to cat purchasing and cat ownership to the same extent as dogs. You will often get litters of kittens whereby, kind people will give away a kitten to a good home free.
I mean, the other thing is, again, one of our two cats went to AWOL there a couple of months ago back and no sign of him.
Yes.
But I mean, the thing is, are people inclined when they do find a cat that's maybe put up for adoption or, good old Tom is out there somewhere, probably with a bit of luck hanging out with some children, with a bit of luck and fingers crossed. But is it a case that when people go to these pounds or they go to the KSPCA or the ISPCA and they're looking around and they're getting a bit of advice, do they actually take the cats that are maybe a year or two old, or do they always want kittens and bring them through their own way?
They're probably looking for kittens.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I would say a less active, older person could give a good home to an older cat.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. But definitely families, I would say, probably do get kittens, yes.
Okay.
Because an older cat is going to want a quieter life and a quieter house.
Okay, a couple of questions. First of all, is it okay for a dog or a cat to eat cheese? And they're two separate questions, coincidentally, love. Maybe from two different people, two different phone numbers there. Yeah, okay, eating cheese.
It is okay.
In moderation, I presume.
Yeah, in moderation. Okay, it's fatty. Okay, so there is that kind of health warning with it in terms of the calories and the fat. But dogs love cheese. So oftentimes if people have to give a course of medication or a tablet for any reason to their dog, but disguising it in a little chunk of cheese is a good idea. So on the dog side, no issues with it. On the cat side, there's something useful, worth saying. A lot of cats are lactose intolerant.
Right.
Yeah. So do you know the way there was a kind of an old myth, again, about the cat and the saucer of milk?
Yes.
Now, cats love milk.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are allergic to milk.
Okay. What would the symptoms be? Now, I'll give you an example because my cat kind of went through a stage where he just had a bit of a tummy thingy that went on with. We brought him down to our local vet. She gave him some stuff. He seems to be in flying form now. But what she said was, maybe just give him a little bit. He's never really a milk drinker. But we did give him a bit of milk and subsequently, hey, this is milk. This is cool stuff altogether. He loved it. But now my problem is we don't give it to him every day. We can mix it with water, not physically mixing it, but one day it could be a bowl of water, next day it could be kind of... But we find that I never see my cat actually drinking water. I always see the cat drinking milk.
So the best way to get fluids into a cat is just to wet their dinner.
Okay.
They're not big drinkers. They derive most of their moisture from their food.
Okay.
So a wet food, wetting the cat nuts with water or milk is a good idea.
Okay, so that's something that's kind of caught me off guard a little bit there, because say for that bag of stuff that you have there,
Yes.
Which you were saying, it shows the difference between cats and dogs.
Yeah.
It's dry. So what would you saying? Add a little bit of water to it?
I would say, look, again, this comes with a health warning that it doesn't suit all cats. But if they're getting fussy and they're going off their dry food, do add a little bit of milk.
Yeah.
Do wet it and see if that makes a difference. See if that gets the cat back eating again. And have a separate water bowl beside the food bowl. If the food is very dry, it'll stimulate their thirst.
Okay.
And they might drink a little bit of water then. But if you have an older cat, they can have toothache and they could have an inflamed gums and so on. Oftentimes older cats, one of the signs of them getting older and more run down is that their oral health and oral hygiene disimproves, gets worse. And then they go off the dry food, it hurts them to eat it. That cat will be switched to wet food. And what you'll invariably find is that then they'll almost stop drinking because they're getting enough moisture from the wet food.
Okay, I've watched cats, I've watched other cats kind of floating around as well. The one thing I notice is that if you give a cat, say, a bowl of water in your house, the chances are you'll never see him drinking it. Yeah. But if I let him outside and there's a puddle of water on the ground, or there's licking the leaves or something or whatever, you see that all the time.
Yeah, you would. Okay, so they, again, because they're hunters, they seem to have an instinct to eat fresh and drink fresh. They will drink running water. They'll drink water that appears to be moving because to them, instinctively, it appears to be fresher. So they'll drink from a tap. Oftentimes, they'll drink from a source of water that they think is fresh.
Yeah, and that leads me to some of those cat toys you often see in the pet shops where it's like a little fountain and it dribbles, and you often see the cats drinking that.
Yeah, now exactly. The indoor cat, you see, that doesn't get enough stimulation and might be at risk of developing stress conditions or whatever. Those water fountains are a great idea for the indoor cat.
Okay, is it possible for an older dog to get to like a cat? It's a rescue dog and he's very stressed and trying to attack the cat all the time.
Yeah, no, that's probably not going to change.
No, it's not going to change, no.
So it's not fair on either the cat or the dog.
No.
In that situation, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's it, straightforward, simple enough. I've seen it before where our next door neighbours, they got a kitten and they got a puppy at the same time. Yeah. And now they're best mates. You should see them playing together.
That's great.
And they brought them up together at the same time. We mentioned, is it okay for a cat to eat cheese? Why do cats love catnip?
What's catnip? Catnip is one of those treats that you buy in the shop, and it's...
Yeah, it's kind of... I think the catnip, it looks like as if it's a drugs for cat, like, you know. It's one of those ones where it's... it looks as... they seem to be addicted to it once they get their hands on it.
Well, they love fat. They are, as they say, obligate carnivores. So they're not on... They won't eat vegetables, anything else like that. Their diet does need to be high fat and high meat. So they're going to crave a high fat diet and a high meat diet.
Okay, and we have a voicemail. It's after coming in here. I think it's from Noel. We'll just have a listen to it. Here it comes.
Question. I have a boxer. He's 12 years of age. We've had to kind of put him outside now because he's going to the toilet a lot in the house. Had him out for a walk the other day when he got him up the lane, and his back legs are starting to go out from underneath him, particularly his back left. Any recommendations?
Okay,
yeah, good history there. So the urinary incontinence that Noel describes, that's involuntarily going to the toilet in the house.
Okay.
Coupled with the other sign of losing control of his back legs, getting weaker on his hind legs and so on, right? And he's a boxer. So that whole picture together tells me that this boxer more than likely has arthritis and inflammation of his lower back, and it's affecting his nerves, it's affecting his ability to control his bladder and go to the toilet, and it's affecting his mobility at the same time. So if I was to say one thing, that could be that's lower back or spinal disease. Definitely that poor dog does need to visit the vets today. I wouldn't leave it. He's in the latter stages of his life. There's a lot that a vet can do for that dog to give him a good quality of life for the last few months or a year or so of his life. He's quite old for a boxer, so now would be the time to give that dog a little bit of help so that, as I say, the last chapter of his life has a good quality to it.
Okay. Des, last week we were talking about spot on, so there's a question about spot on. How often should you do the spot on with either cat or dog?
Okay, so an indoor cat that's going to be around children should be done monthly, because of the zoonotic aspect of it. That's the diseases that the cat can give children and old people. So do the cat monthly. Now, there are some products that have great longevity to them, 1 or 2 on the market that are licensed for 3 monthly. So that being the case, if you get one of the expensive ones, you might be okay doing it every 3 months, but generally speaking, a monthly with a standard spot on would be the recommendation.
Okay. My 12-year-old golden retriever has been having problems with his hind legs also in recent weeks or so. It feels as if that he's carrying a limp on his left side, but he doesn't seem to have got into some sort of trauma.
Yeah, 2 things there. That types of
maybe, or
conditions that retrievers have a high incidence of hip dysplasia, and they also have a high incidence of arthritis in older age in the stifle. That's the doggy equivalent of the knee. So the 2 big joints in the hind leg. That's not an injury or a trauma. More than likely, that's just wear and tear that's catching up on the poor dog, and he probably is arthritic in either the hip or the knee. And definitely also he should visit the vet. I'm a big exponent of. We say this every week about senior care, senior dog care, and I'm not a big believer in all kinds of invasive investigations and treatments and surgeries and all the rest of it with older animals. No, I believe in getting them on a good regime, a good treatment plan that's going to maximise their quality of life. So typically a retriever like that with arthritis, osteoarthritis, us vets can do a lot for a dog like that in terms of helping the arthritis, helping the pain, improving his mobility and giving him a better quality of life for maybe the last year of his life.
Okay, another question to do with cats as well. Should I let my cat have kittens, or should I get the cat spayed beforehand? I once was told that basically if a cat does have kittens, it's good for their overall health.
No, it makes no difference at all. Cats are not, they have no instinct with regards to remembering whether they had a kitten or they didn't have a kitten, no. And oftentimes they're not very maternal, and they'll as soon as the kittens are grown up, they want nothing to do with them anyway.
Yeah, they let them get on with it.
Yeah, so in terms of putting some type of a human slant on whether they should have kittens or not, no. You have to be practical, and the practical thing to do is neuter this cat as early as possible so that she doesn't have kittens, because sadly there are far too many kittens being born in the wild that are uncared for.
Okay, and that's what's happened. They just have to kind of figure out how to survive, and most of them they probably don't. But even though you were saying generally cats are pretty hardy creatures anyway.
They're very hardy. The reason we have a big wild cat population is because, unlike dogs, they can survive in the wild.
Yeah.
They're not as domesticated as dogs. Remember, we've only domesticated cats for about 10,000 years, so their wild instinct is really strong. And that means we have far too many stray cats out there. So the problem is that if there's a litter of kittens born and people have difficulty managing that litter of kittens and being able to keep them all and keep track of them all and find homes for them all and all the rest of it, a lot of those kittens then will revert to the wild. They'll disappear one day. So in terms of allowing an outdoor cat to just have a litter of kittens, you're probably contributing to the wild cat population rather than doing any good.
Okay, and just a question. Some people describe the effect of a catnip as a high because many cats become very relaxed, calm and happy after interacting with the catnip. However, scientific studies have shown that catnip doesn't affect the brain in the same way as drugs, like other human drugs would take, says Damien. Right. Thanks for that as well. Obviously, it's some sort of weedy stuff or something that you give them or they smell or they take or whatever else. I don't know. I have seen it. I have never given it to my cat, so I can't really comment on it. But if anybody's any more information, just messages there. We'll do a little bit of research. Oh yeah, sister's dog has Jack Russell, age 13, who has... Oh, it's gone. Hold on a second. I'll just refresh that. Okay, here we go. Sister's... I can't believe it's just gone. Here we go. Okay, sister's dog has a Jack Russell, aged 13, who has a tumour near his heart and liver infection and lately fatty near where you put the collar. The vet suggested to give Calpol and painkillers. If it doesn't work, bring him back where they might give the injection to let him go, as he's eating ham and a bit of food. His spirit is good, but generally he wants to walk only a few minutes here and there, as he seems to be in a little bit pain. He's generally in good spirits, but it's sad in another way, as he wants to walk all the time but just can't.
Yeah, go back to your vet solicitor, that'd be my advice there, and get him on some appropriate pain medication so that he has a good quality of life. Those tumours might not be malignant in themselves. It sounds like they're lipomas, which are really common, but there's a lipoma pressing on his chest, there's a lipoma pressing on his neck and so on. So definitely that dog does need to be on appropriate good pain medication. Calpol would only be scratching the surface.
Yeah.
There's a lot that your vet can do for that dog. So I would go back and I would have a discussion about palliative care, about end-of-life options, about quality-of-life options.
OK, one final one. Patrick just dropped in this message. What's the life expectancy of a Jack Russell in general?
16 or 17.
Yes, so I heard.
Great these days.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. OK, well done, Des. That was interesting. I know we went off a little bit, but to be honest with you, the cat discussion worked out really, really
That's
well.
Great, John.
And we're back again next Tuesday doing it all over again here on Kildare's KFM's 11 to 3.
It's a pet's life with Gym Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit at petslife.ie.